Hi folks, it's Nate Piekos of Blambot and welcome to Lettering Live. Today I have Minor Threats Volume 2, Issue 1, page 22 for you. So the first thing you may notice about this page is there are no balloons. There are a few internal monologue captions and 3 sound effects. And you'll see me finish the monologue captions first. And you'll notice when I'm done, I add just the tiniest little bit of a stroke to the text, like a 0.15 point. It's almost not noticeable. But I do this because we've got light colored text, in this case white, on top of a dark background, in this case a blue to black gradient fill. So when you have light colored text on a dark background, it's possible that that text can close up a little bit when the ink hits the page and there's a little bit of ink bleed. So adding this very small stroke sort of mitigates that problem. So moving on, our first sound effect, probably the one I'm happiest with on this page, was designed with my font Shrunken Head. And Shrunken Head isn't necessarily a sound effects font. I designed it more for titles, but I think it works pretty well here. You'll also see me make a clipping mask to push this sound effect behind somebody's head and something flying off the explosion. So the second sound effect was created with my font Rawbones. I'm not as satisfied with this one as the first. It's okay. I'm going to wait until the colors come in, because at this point I'm working over inks, and see if maybe there's something I can do tonally to get this to where I want it. But it's decent for now. It may stay the same. We'll see. The third sound effect was created with my font Bloody Murder. And this one actually wasn't in the script. When I saw the art, it just sort of felt like it was supposed to be there. There's a character called Frankie, and she's shooting a freeze ray at somebody. Now, Jordan and Patton are usually pretty cool with me riffing like this, so we'll see if it stays in. During the corrections phase, it may get edited out. We'll see. Let's see, the dialogue font for Minor Threats is called Out of Line Pro. And I think that's all I've got for you. So enjoy the show. So as usual, I'm going to place the art in the art layer of my template and align it to the top left corner. Lock it down and then take a good look at the art. Start figuring out where things are going to go, compare it to the script, seeing what's going to have to be pasted in there. And I'm going to do all my text first, so I drag and drop my area type objects where they need to be. And there's a bunch of captions on this page. I like captions. Captions are fast. It saves me time to do a lot of captions rather than balloons. Fitting text into a rectangular shape is much easier than fitting it into an oval. Here I am reading the script, making sure I've got the tone of things and where things are going. Clearly that "a killer" line was supposed to go into the panel previous. Adjusting the weights with character styles. Copying and pasting this caption style, this dark caption style. The text will eventually be white, but right now I'm just fitting the caption box to the text. And now I'll select all that text, make it white, make sure it doesn't overprint. Here I'm adding that very tiny little stroke that I told you about earlier. See, it's almost not even noticeable. So let's dig into sound effects. So I've got a big dead space up there, and that's where I'm going to put that kaboom. Trying to decide on fonts. What am I going to go with? No, not that one. Try something else. No, too blocky. Lots of choices. Too many choices. I've designed too many fonts. But this is about when I stumble on Shrunken Head. Fun fact, if you're designing a sound effect with an organic looking font and you want 3 versions of the letter O, you can actually use the number 0, which is often very similar to the upper and lowercase O's. It just looks a little different, as shown here. So this is where we just get into playing. I'm starting to move things around and slant things and change sizes and creating that dynamic look that I think I've mentioned before. Dynamic is usually the name of the game when you're talking about sound effects. It's got to look like it's moving. It's the visual representation of sound. It's the soundtrack. And usually I like to make it look like all the sound effects are sort of emanating from the source of the sound. You see there I'm adding a little bit of perspective to help sell that. And I'm already planning that this sound effect will overlap that caption a little bit, and I'm going to have to make a clipping mask to drop it behind Frankie's arm. I just made an offset path. And just fine-tuning. Colors are not, we don't really have to worry about color at this time because I don't know the final color of the page, and I will eventually want to make sure it complements everything. So for now it's just a placeholder. And I'm just experimenting with ideas and eventually going back to what I had before. I'm playing with a gradient fill here. Will a gradient fill work? I think it does, but not with that sort of dusty red color at the top. That's not working for me. And change that gradient to orange. That's better. No. Tried duplicating that again to make it a little thicker, and no, don't like it. Oh, do I? Yeah, I guess I did. You know, I record these a couple of weeks after I've done the lettering, and I letter so many pages, I forget what I've done. But here we go with the clipping mask around Frankie's arm. I also decided to do a clipping mask around that little wisp of smoke there that's coming off the explosion. So clipping masks are the great time eater in your schedule. You zoom in real close, and using the pen tool, you just click around to get that nice perfect perimeter of the object you're going to create the illusion that your sound effect is behind. And all of this is impermanent, so I can undo this effect if I need to and make adjustments. You want to make sure that pretty much everything when you're lettering is undoable, because who knows what kind of corrections you're going to have to make in the corrections phase. So there's that clipping mask. And I got to get a little closer, a little more accurate with that mask. So here we go with some tweaking. You see how this can eat up your time? You could adjust this endlessly, but you got to keep in mind sometimes that you're zoomed in so tight, you're seeing things that nobody is going to see when they read the comic. I mean, nobody's going to get this close to the artwork. So you got to let some things go. And some things you fuss over forever just seem to come out all right when they're in print. So here's sound effect number 2. This is the one I mentioned I wasn't quite as happy with. I feel like also I might have covered a bit too much of the action here. You see that swipe that the character is taking behind her head, and those motion lines. But there's really, I don't know, there's no other place to put it. I wanted the letters to follow the action. Because once again, dynamic. You're going to get really sick of hearing that. So I'm going to mess around with this until I feel like I'm not covering too much of the action, but also following the motion of the strike. In the end, it worked out okay. You can tell I'm overthinking it. I'm dragging it, I'm stretching it. Adding an offset path. Changing that to a gradient fill from sort of a brick red to an orange. In retrospect, I know I'm unhappy with something when I play with it for too long. Trying out different colors for that offset path. And I duplicated the offset path to add a little bit of motion to reinforce that movement just a little bit more. I don't know what I was doing there. Was I contemplating just deleting the whole thing and starting over? Possibly. And I decided to move on to the third sound effect. This is the one that wasn't in the script. But as you can see here, it kind of looks like it needs a sound effect. We've got Frankie holding a penguin-shaped freeze ray, and kudos to Jordan and Patton for simply coming up with the concept of a penguin-shaped freeze ray. Pure brilliance. So I picked a font here that I thought looked kind of, I don't know, icy, cold, frozen. I don't know. We can reinforce that with color here in a minute. Adding a little perspective, because it looks like the freeze ray is sort of shooting towards us. And of course, if you want something cold, you change it to lots of whites and pale blues. Adjusting that offset path, doubling it up. You'll notice me zoom out and zoom in a lot because we design these things while we're zoomed in, but you don't really get the whole idea of how it works with the art until you zoom out and you see it in the context of the page. Deleting a few of these little gaps, these little doodads here. And doubling up that offset path. And I think that's it. Got rid of all the assets outside the artboard we didn't need, and I added the page number to the title block. So we're taking one final look, making sure I'm happy with everything. And we just have to save the file, and we're all done.